Today on Zestology, how would you like to improve your eyes, brain and body? I mean, it all sounds quite nice, quite general, quite non-specific, doesn't it? But if you do this, the way my guest talks about today, you will not need glasses ever again. That's the promise. Okay, so if you've got any sort of issues with your eyes, or you need glasses, or you're like me, and as time goes on, you just realise your eyes aren't quite what they used to be. Simultaneously and naturally, your eyes will sort themselves out and you'll feel better in your body as well. That is the promise on today's Zestology. Hi, I'm Tony. I'm an author, presenter at Sky Sports, and years ago I went to the jungle and got ill. Very ill. So this is my podcast adventure to find more energy. It's packed with biohacking, science, health tech, supplements, and some of the most well-known experts on the planet.
This is something I spent 4 months of my life doing with electrodes glued to my head so that you can do a lifetime worth of meditation.
Decide what you don't give a fuck about, which is something you don't care about.
Some of it gets quite out there.
I had some stem cells sent up to my house that I had stored, and then I injected myself with mannitol.
And we even hack hangovers.
Alcohol is poisonous. So is water and oxygen in the wrong dosage.
So that's my podcast, Zestology. Live life with energy, vitality and motivation. Welcome back to Zestology. Yes, I've gone down a proper rabbit hole since speaking to Peter Grunwald. I now do eye exercises every day. I'm going to talk more about that in just a second. But you may have heard my podcasts a couple of weeks ago about doing the fasting mimicking diet and ProLon. And I just wanted to do a quick retrospective on that now for a couple of minutes. It's definitely worth you having a listen to those podcasts. I did one daily, so it was Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday on my own, Thursday and Friday with my wife who did it with me. Me and Faith did it together. And I wanted to bring you a brief update on how my stats were after doing ProLon for a week, because I've analysed my Oura ring heart rate variability and heart rate stats with some interesting results. Now, just to recap, the ProLon is a fasting mimicking diet. You do it for a week. It arrives all in a box. If you check the particular podcasts that I recorded a couple of weeks ago, I think there's a discount code in the show notes. And you have 800 calories on the first day, and you have about 600 calories for days 2, 3, 4, and 5. You eat a lot of posh cuppa soups. But I must say, afterwards, I felt pretty good. Very good, actually. And if I have a look at my heart rate variability stats, they've probably gone up 20%. And my resting heart rate stats is slightly skewed because I went out last night and I had one cocktail. I know, I'm such a lightweight, aren't I? But it massively pushes my heart rate up. My heart rate has gone down an average of about 3 or 4 beats a minute as well overnight. So I think that's some really, really good signs. And I just wanted to let you know that because this is about 3 or 4 weeks on now. Obviously, we'll disregard last night. It was a rose Bellini, which sounds very posh, doesn't it? It was lovely, yeah. But anyway, I do think it's quite significant what happened with ProLon and my resting heart rate and heart rate variability stats. I'm continuing to see an improvement. And all in all, it was a good experience. There was something mental about it as well. I sort of felt afterwards I'd completed a good challenge. I was impressed with myself. On to today's podcast guest. Natural eyesight expert Peter Grunwald has such an incredible story. As you'll hear, I've been reading his book and can't believe how he improved his eyesight from frankly terrible to no glasses at all. And one of the many interesting things in the podcast concerns the link between the cornea and the body and the simple exercises such as sunning and cupping and how they help our eyesight no end. Really impressive guest. Here he is, Peter Grunwald on Zestology. Peter, welcome to Zestology.
Thank you very much for having me on your program, Tony.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk to you. I'm reading your book at the moment, which you very kindly sent me. It's an extraordinary story. I mean, I suppose a good place to start would be to ask you to explain to people how you got involved in this whole area, because I've been just absolutely glued to your book and the tales of your childhood and then the traveling around the world and all your explorations and all the interesting people that you've met. It's quite a tale.
I guess if you ask me like this, my story, it started directly from birth. How about this? But I do it pretty quickly. So I was born with the age of 3. I got already my first glasses for short-sightedness, nearsightedness, and astigmatism. But apart from this, I was stuttering really heavily. My body was starting to slump more and more, and particularly emotionally, I had so many fears and anxieties, many more fears and anxieties than what real living would have been, really. So, and apart from this, my brain, when I grew up, my brain was not really functioning very well. And I had no idea that the physical, emotional, mental aspect, and later on the spiritual aspects, would be directly interrelating. That the eyesight and the stuttering and my emotional fears and my brain not really functioning would be all interrelated. I should be finding out this much later. Then with 18, as you can hear, I grew up in Germany with 18, where all the males had to do a military service. And I didn't want to go to the army. And I discovered how to get out of the army was by my brother, who is a little older, who was saying if his vision would have been worse, he wouldn't have to go. And so I started with the age of 18 or 17 and a half to train my eyes, namely to make them worse. And in nowadays, I know what I did. I think emotionally, I was tightening more and more and more. And the limbic brain, the emotional brain, is directly connected with the front part of the eye. So the eye was starting to tighten in front more and more. Less and less light came to my maculas, to the retinas. And I needed 2 or 3 new prescriptions over 6 months. And by the time I came to the military thing, they were saying, Mr. Gruenwald, we are so sad, we can't take you because of your poor eyesight. And what I learned there with age 18 was, if I can make my eyesight worse, why not improving on it? And it didn't take very long, and I was on an adventure in South America when I was 19, and I had a near-death experience. And in the near-death experience, I was almost drowning. I was in the ocean, I was drowning, and somebody luckily fished me out. But during the near-death experience, I had the experience of making contact with my soul. By the way, that's not written in the book.
No, I haven't read this bit in the book, yeah.
Yes. So I made contact with my own soul. And soul taught me very, very clearly, it's not time yet to leave this body. Go back. And nowadays, I know how easy it would have been to leave the body. But when I heard from my soul, there's something you still have to do in this life, go back. And I really came back into my body. And there was a very, very deep, emotional, spiritual connectedness with my own soul. And what I got from this experience traveling to South America, well, traveling, there's so much happening, there's so much fun and adventure. How about I go to India? And in India, I stayed in India for over a year, that's over 40 years ago, and I met up one of those chance encounters with a Dalai Lama. And the Dalai Lama looked into my eyes, and I looked back, and something, how may I say, probably an initiation, something really, really, really deeply happened there. And it was probably just 10 minutes or so. Then we farewell each other. And in the meantime, I've been able to meet up with him a few more times. And it didn't take very long. And I got very, very sick, which is a common thing in India.
Yeah.
I had a very heavy hepatitis. And I was in the Himalayas there, in Sanska and Ladakh. And I thought, where can I cure out my hepatitis in the best way? And I went all the way to southern India. It took me about 3 weeks where I was recuperating from my hepatitis. I was ready to travel again. I hopped onto the next bus. And from one moment to the next, I could see totally and utterly different in a way I could never see before. Suddenly, colors were so deep and so rich. The distinctions of colors were so deep and rich. And suddenly I could see in depth, I could see beneath the surface of people. I could see inside. But I think the most coolest thing was there. Suddenly there were no more fears or anxieties. From one moment to the next, they were totally gone. And I had a absolute conscious connection with soul, with God consciousness. And I remember it was a particular area in the back of the skull, all the way where our hair spirals are. And wherever I went to bed at night, it was still there when I woke up next morning at an amazing God conscious time out of presence, nothing less than presence. And I had no idea that after 7 months in India and continued traveling on the way direction to Australia and to New Zealand, which I had no idea, I was guided there. I was meditating 7 months later on a little mountaintop in Indonesia. And how one does is one closes one's eyes, one opens them after 15, 20, 30 minutes again, and bang. As soon as I opened them, the whole connection to consciousness, to God consciousness, to soul was from one moment gone. And I looked left and right and I couldn't find it. And as you can imagine, a huge depression was setting in there. Having experienced how living out of consciousness can be, and suddenly it's gone and nowhere to be seen, I went right into a depression. But this helped me. The experience I had for 7 months in India helped me to know that living out of consciousness, it's absolutely possible. And the distinction, the difference was just so strong. So it gave me a vision for a lifetime or for a few lifetimes. And I had no idea. First of all, in India, I had no tools how to get there. It was just given to me out of no idea how. And suddenly I knew I had to learn tools to reconnect with this. And I had no idea that I would be discovering later on the blueprint of the visual system of perception, which would help me to connect with my own brain, with the inner structures of the brain, the eyes, the physical body, to not only regain my physical sight. I was minus 10.5 diopters short-sighted, but that I could start to learn to see again. But that my brain was starting to function much, much better. And that my whole physical body, my whole energy, with my physiology, my posture, was starting to reorganize again.
Wow. Yeah.
Just a little bit of the background.
I love the background, and I'm in the middle of that story at the moment, and I've read most of the story, but I know that, that those few months where your vision got a lot better gave you that passion, even once it went away again, to start doing all sorts of seminars around the world, training with some of the very best people. And like a lot of good healers, I think that you've come to it because you needed it for yourself, didn't you? And now you obviously work with thousands of other people doing the same thing.
Yes, I'm calling myself, I'm my best guinea pig. So I have to apply those principles which I discovered for myself.
Something that's interesting, which I thought you might be interested in, and it's not particularly relevant, but we'll get onto obviously how to improve the eyesight in just a second. But have you heard of NLP, neuro-linguistic programming?
Yes, I was trained in it many, many, many years ago.
Oh, good. Okay, well, so I am trained as well in it, and I'm a master practitioner and trainer in it. I had this very odd sensation when we were exchanging emails, setting up this interview. And originally, the reason we were exchanging emails is because you'd accidentally booked onto. We were going to record at midnight your time, weren't we, in New Zealand? And I said we can't do that. It's got that's not going to be good for your eyesight.
Thanks very much for being so flexible.
Yes, but as you know, in NLP, you will often ascribe to a particular person a preferred mode of experiencing the world in the senses, either visual or auditory or kinesthetic. Those are the three main ones. So you know, using the sense of sight, the sound, or the touchy-feely sense. And I had this extraordinary, I don't normally even think about this, but I did with you, and I've noticed talking to you as well, your visual sense is a very dominant sense for you.
Well, I guess it is, because I had so much fatigue. There was so much need to improve it.
Yeah.
But it's not only improving the eyesight. And nowadays I work very much with people with visual dysfunctions of, again, nearsightedness, stigmatism, hypermetropia, farsightedness in early age, glaucoma, cataracts, squints, floaters, whatever there is. But early on in my work, first of all, maybe some of your listeners can recognize this. My base training is in the Alexander technique.
Yes.
The Alexander technique, in particular in Britain, but as well in the US and around the world, it's known for improving posture, and it's known for improving function. Lots of musicians are practicing it, something like that. So that use affects function. And there are principles behind there. So that the whole head, neck, and the whole spine can really align. But there are principles behind there. And those principles I was able to apply not only to the physical body, but to the brain and to the eyes as well. And what I discovered was I was able to map out a direct relationship. I call them the eye-body map. I was able to map out different parts of the eyes with the physical body. For example, the retina is directly connected with the lower back. And lots of people who are nearsighted have got lower back and upper back pains, niggling, something like this. The whole posture is really being affected. And I discovered when we are seeing out of our survival, which is directly connected with our lower visual cortex, directly in the back of the skull, just above the neck area. The neck will be tightening, and then the thalamus, the brainstem, will be tightening too, which will be taking the whole visual system, pulling it back and down. So there is a direct connection. It's not the eye which sees, but the brain. And how the visual system works, light waves are coming in through the front part of the eye, through the cornea, through the lenses, to the maculas, and particularly for the whole periphery of the retina. Then it goes through the optic nerves, the crossover to the thalamus. Now we are inside the brainstem, top of the brainstem. And from here, the information for the clear-sightedness goes all the way to the lower visual cortex, which is just in the back of the skull. And from here, I discovered that in the higher region of the visual cortex, just roughly where the hair spiral is, that's where I discovered there's an overall coordinating mechanism which connects us already with our auric field and with trust and with soul and with God consciousness. And from there, that's what I had back in India. And from there, I discovered there's a direct orientation through the blueprint of the brain so that we can come to the fluid and structures of the eyes, so that we can really undo the whole physiology of the eyes, so that the light waves can come in with ease and effortlessness and such a way clear-sightedness as possible. And that's what I teach in many different countries as well, in the US and in the UK.
Well, that is obviously why your visual sense is so heightened, because you use a lot of words like, you use the word like blueprint and a vision for the future, and I've noticed your language is very visual, and that's hardly surprising because you've devoted your life to it, you know.
But the other senses are connected there too.
Yes.
My hearing sense, my partner Judy always says, "Oh, Peter, you can hear so much. How do you do this?"
Well, that's good. That's good. Yeah, it's all about the senses then. So,
all the senses can function.
I mean, I was partly motivated to get in touch with you because like many men in their 40s, my vision is not what it used to be. And I think it's a really interesting area. You know, I mean, I've always prided myself on having great eyes. And recently, they're just not as good. And especially, I struggle to read the paper in dim light. And, you know, there's a few floaters going on. And it's just, and the colours aren't quite as bright and vivid, I don't think, as before. It's just slightly blurry. And I've been to the opticians a couple of times. And they've been like, oh, yeah, you know, you definitely should be getting glasses. And I've resisted it.
You are that age now.
I'm that age now, but you know, I kind of think, actually, does it have to be like that? I thought, you know, the moment I start getting glasses, my eyes will relax into a new mode of being, and I don't necessarily want that to happen. So I thought, you know, I need to enlist the help of an expert, which is where you come in. And I think for all of us, we'd love to have better eyesight, and it's part of optimizing our sort of health and performance. So there's two questions I'd like to ask you. Firstly, what can we start doing? And that's the bit of your book that I haven't got to yet. And secondly, the discoveries and the techniques that you were talking about a few moments ago, is there any science behind it? Because obviously there's quite a spiritual element to what you're doing.
Well, to me, I'm sure one day a PhD student will come my way who is really interested of doing a scientific study there. But I'm more a self-explorational person, yes, connected with soul, which is a spiritual part, but as well to emotions and the physical body, and in relationship to the eyes. And as the eyes in the embryology, the eyes grew out of the brain. So the eyes are structure of the brain. I think it's the only sense, the only organ from the brain which really makes contact with the environment. I mean, it's so subtle that if I want to touch my eyeball, my eyelids will automatically close. It's so subtle. So when we wear glasses, they are functioning in such a way that the light waves are streamlined in such a way that some of the rays will be coming to the maculas, so that the lower visual cortex can pick up the clear-sightedness. But once we wear glasses, very often the whole visual system starts to fatigue more, because we are relying on the glasses. It just comes only to the macula, and the whole rest of the visual system is not being used. And if I think about that, I would like to, let's say, die healthier than when I was born, yes, over those 100 years living or more, yes, then I would really like to use the entirety of my visual system, because it's not only perception, but I discovered as well that many, many years after I discovered between the eyes and the physical body, I discovered that the emotional aspect, that our old cell memories, not only from our 100 years living, but from the last 7 generations or incarnations or excarnations, however we like to see it, are held not only in our body, in our brain, but I mapped out maybe so far about 50 different emotional states, like fears and anxieties, yes, which are held directly in the front part of the vitreous humor. So when light waves are coming in, they are stimulating the old cell memories, although it has got nothing to do with right now here. And I think my fears from my childhood to connect with the emotional part was there. My mother, she was Jewish. She was a German Jew, and she survived Nazi Germany, or the Nazi time in Germany. And then after the Second World War, I was always asking her, what was this like? And she had no real stories about it. There were no fears, no anxieties, nothing. It's like, it was okay. And I think I, in the next generation, picked up so much of the unspoken,
yes.
unrealized fears and anxieties, yes, which, although I took this on board, it was not mine.
Yeah.
Yet, in my visual system and in my beingness, it was all in there.
Yeah.
So working with the visual system, I discover nowadays to undo those old cell memories which don't make any sense, and out of the undoing and bringing soul qualities or virtues of happiness and love and compassion, yes, into it. This is changing the cell structure within the structures of life. I don't know if this is answering any of your questions.
No, it's fascinating. It really is. Interrupting this podcast for one moment to remind you that it is brought to you by my podcast partner, Inside Tracker. I'm so excited to work with Inside Tracker because I've been a tracking geek for a long time. And when you do what you love, like running and racing, like enjoying the great outdoors, it's nice to do it for longer. You want to do it for life. And Inside Tracker can help with that. Inside Tracker was founded in 2009, by leading scientists in aging, genetics, and biometrics. And they have a patented algorithm. So what they do is they analyze your body's data, and you can do testing at home, which is brilliant. I've done it. It's very easy. Easiest blood test I've ever done at home. And then it provides you with a clear picture of what's going on inside you. Then you can upload data from DNA. You can upload your own tracking. You can upload your wearable data as well. And then you get science-backed recommendations for positive diet and lifestyle changes. I think this is what we've been waiting for in the biohacking world, in the health world. Inside Tracker tracks your progress every day, every step of the way, and then you reach your performance goals and you live a longer, healthier life. That is the idea, and that's what I want with this podcast as well. And for a limited time, very limited time, you can get 25% off the entire Inside Tracker store. So you can go to insidetracker.com/zestology. If you want 25% off, you'll get it at that address, insidetracker.com/zestology. Also, please do let me know what you think, because I would love to hear your success stories, how you found that it's helped, what you've learned from your tracking. I've definitely made a serious change as a result of the Inside Tracking recommendations. So I'd be interested to know what you can learn from it as well. insidetracker.com/zestology. You know, I mean, when you think at a very deep level about making changes,
yes,
of course, you know, all those trapped emotions that, you know, that you inherited from your poor mother who lived through such a horrendous time. And the best way that she knew to deal with it was to move on and block it out as much as possible. You
so
just don't
I actually don't blame her for it. And maybe in my generation, in our generation, to take the responsibility by learning to undo our old cell memories there, so that we don't pass them on to our next generation, to our children. Yes. And I think nowadays, in our age now, we have got absolutely the tools for it to undo them, which creates freedom and presence and consciousness for us now, which is not only improving our own bodies and eyes and brain in this case, but I think supports our understanding of letting go of a deep, deep survival modus of fight and flight, which I call over-focusing, which is 150% fighting, or under-focusing would be fleeing. And which is directly, it's part of our visual system, our mental focus. That's always my start there.
Yeah.
And there's a third modus which comes out of consciousness, which is the intent for presence. We all heard about presence, which is always there and doesn't cost anything. Yeah. And when I come to the intent for presence, that's very much what I teach in the beginning as well online. When we come to the intent for presence and have a practice about presence and on presence, I stop interfering in my brainstem, in my thalamus, and in my visual system. And then I undo my old cell memories, and then I come directly 5 centimeters, 2 inches further up in my brain, where I connect with consciousness, and there is the orientation to the eyes, which is further up than what we think.
Yeah. And I just think it's so interesting because this podcast is about energy, and on a surface level, energy is about waking up in the morning and having loads of get up and go. But there's also very deep layers and levels to energy, and I think this, some of the concepts that you're talking about are quite hard for people to get their head around. Your average skeptic saying, hang on, you're talking about like suppressed emotions from different generations, and that's all to do with your eyesight. And actually I'm fully on board with this, but I'm just saying that these are some concepts that will take people a while to get their head around, and I'm very much enjoying you introducing them.
Now, I would be starting first of all with something which I call the panoramic vision,
Okay, yeah.
With night vision. The retinas are very, very important in all sorts of visual dysfunctions there. And night vision or evening vision before going to bed, maybe 20 minutes, half an hour before going to bed, doing our toiletry things, and then being again in darkness. In America and in Britain, and in New Zealand, Australia, the shades are very flimsy very often.
Yes.
In Europe and Central Europe, there are really shutters there, which can be much better.
Yes, that's better, yeah.
But being really in darkness for 20, 30 minutes, this will allow that the periphery of the photoreceptors are starting to function, which is vital for the pathways into the brain.
So still with your eyes open then?
With our eyes open, yes. Having a candle would be fine. There's one light source, but everything surrounding it would be dark. And it's the darkness which is vital for recuperation for the brain. Right. So if we are in front of our computers and switching lights on in the evening until we pop into bed, I think we are only using our day vision, our maculas, and we are losing our night vision. And so then I think our visual system is starting to fatigue over many, many, many years. And then the thing with presbyopia for you, where you're losing the close-up range to see letters or numbers, 6 and 8 and those things. And so the night vision is a very integral part to allow that the brain and the retina can rejuvenate again.
Yeah. Okay. So number one in improving our eyes is getting in the evenings a dim. I've actually got some of these blue blocker wonderful things you stick into a USB port, and it's a lovely dim orange light. It's a bit like a candle, but very, very dim. So you could just have that on in a low light, and then just walking around while I'm cleaning my teeth or whatever, and that is starting to just help the brain to relax and help the eyes to rejuvenate after a long day.
Well, how about you turn off the lights?
All the lights.
And shut your computer down.
Oh, yeah,
and,
yeah.
And being really more in darkness so that we are using more the peripheral vision, very important for all our screen time and screen work, that we are not over-focusing on it, but having a much, much wider perspective there, which is fundamentally for the nervous system and the brain. Yeah. For this, many years ago, I developed something which I called eye-body pinhole glasses.
Oh, yes, you've sent me some. These are incredible, yeah.
Have you been noticing a difference when you used them?
I've got a question. So just for people, firstly for people listening, these glasses you sent me them in the post with the book, and it's like a normal pair of glasses, and they look like sunglasses, don't they? But what they've actually got is they've sort of got pinholes where you can see through the holes on the glasses. Now, I've got a question for you before I answer your question, and that is, are there lenses in the glasses, or are they just normal lenses?
There is just plastic, dark plastic. Yeah. And you can blow through the holes. They are just holes. There are no lenses there.
I can see better when I put them on.
Exactly. Let me explain how this works.
That is astonishing. I was like, he sent me actual lenses, I'm really amazed by that, actually.
So how they work, I stanced little holes, and they have to be I discovered the coordinated macula, the right hole size for the coordinated macula, which is not dependent on the dysfunctional macula, which can be for everybody different, for different vision fatigues different, but with the right hole size, it connects. Some of the light waves come to the macula, which connects with presence in our lower visual cortex, so that some of the information comes to the lower visual cortex for clear-sightedness. For many, many people, for some, the blur might be in the close distance or in the far distance. When they put them on, they can see clearer. But at the same time, the darkness of the plastic surrounding the holes, they're allowing that the peripheral photoreceptors, the panoramic vision of the retina, can function. So that the macula and the periphery can function simultaneously. To me, that's a training tool. It's a training tool for creating presence, and in such a way connecting with a different region of the brain.
Wow! So you put the glasses on, and you are training your brain to work in an improved way.
Exactly, because I think there is nothing really wrong with the eyes. It's the key is the brain, so that more synapses in the brain can function again in such a way that the coordination of the fluid and structures of the eyes can reorganize, so that light waves can naturally come in. So it's a retraining the brain, and the eyes will be following the brain. If I only try to exercise the eyes, I think fundamentally nothing changes in the brain. Yeah. And I would like to start with the brain, so that the eyes and the physiology of the body and our environment, like our computer use, or in relationship, playing music, all of those things we can do without glasses or contact lenses.
So can you put the glasses on a sec? I just want to see them, because we need a screen grab, you see, to advertise this podcast. Oh, that's perfect. Perfect. Very good. On
our website, you can see this, the website, the eyebody.com website. You can see how the Pinot glasses look like.
Right.
On the world market, there are many different types of Pinot glasses, but very often the holes, when they are too small, we go directly into over-focusing, into our survival modus. If they are too big, we go into switching of daydreaming, mind wandering, but not into play. So I'm very, very clear. It needs to be the right hole size.
Okay, so you sell them. Do you sell those glasses then?
Yes.
Good.
Yes.
Yeah. Great. I mean, that's absolutely fascinating. So we've got the glasses and we've got the dim light in the evening.
Yes. In the book, in the iBody book, which I wrote many years ago, The Art of Integrating Eye, Brain, and Body, Living Life Naturally Without Glasses, that's my standard work, which I wrote many, many years ago, translated in many different languages. And I can really recommend to get much, much more a handle of where I'm coming from in relationship to the brain, eye, body, and the spiritual aspect there too. I had different vision activities in there, not directly in the beginning where you are in the book at the moment, but later on.
Yeah.
And I established a really good introductory online class, which has got 3 modules where I take people step by step through for the beginning there. That's online, and where...
Oh, great. I'd love to do that.
The middle module has got an individual session with myself or with one of my colleagues in the iBody work, and it's really, really worthwhile engaging there.
Yeah, fantastic. So, I mean, you've given us a couple of ideas there, and then obviously I'm presuming there's quite a bit around posture. You know, you mentioned tension in the neck and the lower back. That's fascinating as well, and presumably it's all about. It's interesting that we talk about senses, isn't it? Because whilst it's a focus on the visual sense, it seems to me about the connection between all the senses and connecting the eyes and the physicality to the emotions and what's going on inside.
Well, when I started off with this, I had no idea what journey would come there. I just had, I had my glasses. I didn't want them, and what can I do? And then I started training with my teacher, Dr. Janet Goodrich, who passed away many, many years ago. And she brought back the idea that one can improve vision. We are not fixed on that our vision needs to get worse and worse the older we are getting, yes, or becoming, that actually we can reverse this. And that's exactly, and out of this, I developed those principles, and I took it much, much deeper than my teacher, for example.
Wow. Yeah. And I mean, it's just worth reminding people as we sort of come to the end of the interview that you were wearing the strongest glasses and you had quite a debilitating stutter. And
Absolutely.
and now we're recording this. You're not wearing contacts, are you?
No.
No, you're not wearing contacts. You're not wearing glasses. And your whole childhood and early adulthood, you had the strongest glasses, didn't you?
Yes. I started directly, as I was mentioning before, with age 3. And I ended up, when I took my glasses off consciously for the first time, I couldn't see more than about 10 centimeters in front of my eyes.
That is amazing. And
it
now
took
look
me
at you.
1.5 years until I didn't need any glasses anymore.
Yeah.
I didn't see by that time totally clearly, but then I was able to take it deeper and deeper into the structure, into the nervous structure, into the embryology of the visual system. And out of this, and I think in those 9 months in my mother's womb, I probably have never really developed fully my personal visual system and my physiology. And it does not mean when we are born once with this, that's it and it needs to get worse. But I would like to improve for the rest of my life in such a way, having so much more energy, seeing better, hearing better. Yes.
Yeah.
And so that and I'm just writing a new book on as well, that's maybe a little far-fetched here, on the visual system, particular as well in the process of dying. That's a total different theme.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
So that's a new book as well on the emotional and the spiritual aspects, which I guess came very much out of my interest of connecting really with soul early on.
Yeah.
But I would like to have everything function, not just my lower back hurts, but I can see clearly, or I can't see clearly, but my lower back hurts. I would like that everything simultaneously can improve in such a way. There's much, much more energy there.
Well, exactly. I think you're on my list of fantasy dinner guests. There's so much to discuss with you.
I will be in the UK if this works very well. I do a retreat in early August in Yorkshire, but as well in Europe. And I do always a 3-week retreat in New Zealand, always in January.
Yeah, that's great. If when you're in the UK, as long as flights are kind of operating okay again, then you must let me know, and we'll have to meet in person and record one of these in person. And it's interesting when you were talking about over focusing.
Yes.
I thought that's quite a nice metaphor for what the whole world has been doing for the last 1.5 years, actually.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think there is. At the moment, there's so much fears and anxieties around, and I could imagine in the next, let's say, 2-3 years or earlier, we'll have many, many more people with cataracts and maybe detached retinas, where the vitreous humor, the fears and anxieties, from my understanding, are directly happening in the front part of the vitreous humor. And when the vitreous humor pushed forwards, we are losing the contact with the retina in the back, and then the lens can't breathe, can't operate really well. And then it's only like a matter of time that cataracts are gradually forming. And from a physical point of view, the ciliary folds and the lenses are directly connected with the lungs and with the diaphragm. And with COVID, it's each time again the lungs, the diaphragm, not breathing. It's a very, very, and the heart is a very, very important aspect there.
Yeah.
And I could imagine we'll find many, many more people with vision fatigue, not only being on screens and narrowing their focus, and rather than taking it back and forth and close again, but that our breathing, that our retinas, the ciliary folds, and the lenses will suffer there. And we can really retrain this. It's not just we haven't got then COVID, but really undoing old cell memories there. Very important.
Yeah.
So I think this work and many, many other people's work will be very important for recuperating again our own health, and this for a much wider community. And I'm very aware, living in New Zealand for the last 40 years, in particular now, we are very, very fortunate, like in Australia, like in New Zealand, that our governments had, our Jacinda Ardern, our Prime Minister, had a very, very clear vision and direction, and engaged the team of 5 million people so that we are inside New Zealand COVID-free. How the borders will be open, we don't know yet, but I think from a freedom's point of view, being able to live so freely and really seeing how many people are suffering around the globe, it's very important to bring a vision, what we experience here from New Zealand to the rest of the world as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, the questions that I ask everybody: what is one book that you would recommend, and one tip for living with more energy? So one book recommendation and one tip. What are you gonna recommend for me, Peter?
What I'm reading at the moment, it might not be exactly like this. It's a pattern language, a very, very old book from many, many years ago. It's like really a pattern language has lots to do with a vision for building towns and buildings and constructions.
Okay.
And as I just moved into a new place here in New Zealand, directly on the water, I'm very interested in construction and building and envisaging those aspects. So from that point of view, how to have lots and lots of energy. It's about how to live naturally again.
What's it called?
It's called a pattern language, very, very old.
Okay.
Yes, many people know this from way, way back.
Yeah,
but
great.
The other question you had, or you will have.
Yeah. Living with more energy. What is one tip that you would give us for living with more energy and vitality?
Take your glasses off. And let the natural light come in so that the brain has got a chance to recuperate again. And so that the brain, the eyes, and the physical body can become really, really alive. And seeing from the upper visual cortex, seeing, envisaging all the way from the back of the skull, so that all the 3 brains, the reptilian, limbic, and neocortex, are free to function without interruption. It gives a huge amount of energy there.
Fantastic. Peter, thank you so much. Your website, could you just tell people exactly where to go?
Yes. If you go to iBody, I like the eye, and body, EYEBODY.com. And again, my name is Peter Grunwald, and you can go online there. You can see more about the work and where retreats are happening. I really recommend the iBody book and the pinhole glasses, and particularly engaging in the online course. So that's the beginner's course, which I was doing worldwide beforehand live, and that's online now.
Oh, great. I'll take a look at that as well. Fantastic. Yeah.
Really enjoy.
Good stuff. Peter, thank you so much. It's really lovely to connect. You've got an excellent energy about you, and I've really enjoyed talking to you so much. And I'm looking forward to finishing your book as well. And I'm really amazed at those pinhole glasses, because I thought there's got to be lenses in them, because I can see better when I put them on.
Particular people who have got this presbyopia from the age of 40-ish, roughly between 40 and 50, where we tend to lose the close-up vision.
Yeah.
People with them, they will see so much easier and clearer as well in the closed space there. And very good for computer work. It relaxes the eyes, but it connects us with our own brain, with our focus. Yes.
Extraordinary. Yeah. Okay, Peter, great to talk to you, and hope to catch up with you in person at some point.
Thank you very much. I really enjoyed this too.
That's it for today's Zestology. A quick reminder, if you want to optimize and biohack and be at your best, that's why you've listened this far. You've been looking at your eyesight, and you've been looking at the link between the cornea and the body, and the eye, mind and body. And you want to track stuff, don't you? You want to track and optimize. And that is why Inside Tracker are my podcast partners. They are an ultra personalized performance system. I'm just so interested in tracking everything. And because I've been doing it for so many years, well before I heard of Inside Tracker, I've got spreadsheets coming out my ears. And before that, I had little black books and diaries. Seriously, I've got them all here. Probably some of them are over 10 years old. The thing about Inside Tracker, though, is you get detailed DNA analysis. It looks at your blood DNA, lifestyle, fitness tracker, helps you optimize your body, reach your health and wellness goals. There's quite a focus on diet on there as well, and even recipes. And my results have thrown up some interesting scores and markers. One of my blood markers came back well outside range. Yeah, that's a helicopter you can hear in the background, I think. It's gone now. And yeah, Inside Tracker has helped me take some further action, which is great. So you can go to insidetracker.com/zestology for a big discount, 25% off. InsideTracker.com, Zestology, big discount. If you are somebody who likes a bit of biohacking and a bit of hacking your health and wellness, this is worth doing. And that's just a good discount. It's a good solid discount, isn't it? You'll see a cheesy picture of me there as well. InsideTracker.com/Zestology. That is it for this week's podcast. It's a lovely sunny day here, and it's been a while since I recorded this interview with Peter Grunwald, but right now I'm going to finish recording this podcast. I'm in the spare room at the top of the house. I'm going to shut my laptop. I'm going to go outside. I'm going to do some sunning with my eyes, and I'm very much looking forward to it. So have a good one, and I'll see you next time.